We're here on another part of John Ashworth's strange trails, and this is Drake Street in Rochdale. This is St Chad's Church graveyard. John Ashworth described this place as the last made burying ground connected with St Chad's Church, near the iron palings that divide it from the highway. He said it's easy to distinguish the strangers' portion, for while the rest of the ground is covered with memorials, this part is as bare as the common, though very many are known to be interred there. Amongst the very many buried here were several of Mr Ashworth's acquaintances, including Joseph Sutcliffe from the tale The Silent Corner. In reference to this neglected spot, which he described as the most melancholy part of the churchyard, Mr Ashworth said, "If the question be asked who sleeps there, we must wait till the sound of the last trump for an answer. Then the dead, small and great, will come forth, and many from these obscure resting places, to a glorious resurrection." This is St Chad's Rochdale Parish Church. This is where John Ashworth was baptised in 1813, and this is also where he married his first wife, Jane Thornby, in 1832. That's Mr Ashworth's house here at Broadfield. In his later years, John Ashworth and his wife Hannah lived here at 33 St Albans Street. Mr Ashworth described an occasion when he was a boy and he went to bed a poor child without a shirt, and his mind wandered far into the future, saying, What air castles I did build! I thought I grew to be a man, entered into business, made money, built a new house with a white door and brass knocker to it, planted trees around it and had a lawn and a garden. Later in life he said, the air-built castles had been to some extent realised. This was the case at his home here at Broadfield, where the garden with the trees around it had become a reality. As a testimonial for the Chapel for the Destitute, some of the congregation decided to present Mr. Ashworth with a full-length oil painting portrait, surrounded with a beautifully carved gilt frame worth about 30 guineas, to be hung up in his parlour at Broadfield. When he heard of the idea, Mr. Ashworth said, "When the picture is finished and hung up, you must all come to my house and fall on your knees before it and say, 'Glory be to thee, John Ashworth.'" After this they saw how foolish they had been to suggest it, and the idea was never mentioned again. So here you can just about see Knoll Hill in the distance. We're now in an area known as the Park Slopes, and there used to be houses here. John Ashworth once met an old woman near the end of School Lane who introduced him to a little lad called Tommy Pollitt. 14-year-old Tommy was living in a dirty, miserable home. He was lying on a bed of straw and was so sick, having hurt his spine by falling down the stairs several years before, he was almost a skeleton. The only clothing he had was a pair of trousers, which he had used for a pillow, but his mother had pawned them for drink. The poor, wasted, suffering little Tommy asked Mr. Ashworth to talk to him about Jesus Christ, which Mr. Ashworth said caused a thrill of joy to run through his soul. He said, "Of all my little ragged friends, there is none I have felt and still feel so much interest in as poor, feeble, affectionate Tommy Pollitt. The wood on the banks of the River Roach near the old stone bridge was where John Ashworth met Joseph Sutcliffe, the central character in a tale he called Joseph or the Silent Corner. According to Mr. Ashworth, this was a favourite resort of invalids, had much the appearance of a private walk, and was free from the noise and throng of the streets. He met Joseph Sutcliffe here one beautiful evening in May. Joseph was leaning against one of 3 stone posts that divided the walk in the wood from the field called Sparrow Hill. He was a tall, handsome young man and was a cotton mill worker who was living at Jack Smith's lodging house on King Street. He considered himself very lonely and very miserable, and reasoned that he was beyond the reach of God's love. But Mr. Ashworth helped him to see otherwise, and he came to repentance. A local woman also sent her daughter Rachel to read the 103rd Psalm to Joseph, and this happened to be his mother's favourite psalm. This area of the town is called Town Meadows. John Ashworth had a friend when he was at school called James Farrow. James Farrow's father, George Farrow, was found guilty of committing a violent robbery at Hopwood Cottage in Middleton in 1821. George Farrow was hanged at Lancaster Castle in 1822. In John Ashworth's tale about George, he wrote about how George's widow, his friend James's mother, accompanied her husband's body back to Rochdale on a horse and cart, and she brought the body back here to their home at Town Meadows before George was buried at St Chad's a couple of days later.